The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
7 minutes past the top of the hour. You're tuned in to the Big Talker, 106.7 FM, as we overlook Battleship, North Carolina, on another beautiful morning here in the Cape Fear region, the 14th of September, 2021. Of course, you can find us on various ways throughout the weekday morning broadcasts at BigTalkerFM.com. Video portion of the program available by subscribing to our YouTube channel on Facebook. Find us at The Big Talker 106.7 FM. And our call-in number, 910-299-7535, if you'd like to be a part of the show from now until 10 o'clock. Well, we've got a busy week ahead over the next several days before we head out to Buffalo Friday afternoon for college football this weekend. And one of the great things that we get to enjoy being able to do the thing that we do each and every morning, particularly yesterday, it was really vibing out on a Monday. And other than the start of my fall season for our old man softball team, Quality Exteriors with an 18-3 three-inning win yesterday. Last night, looking to bounce back after a disappointing spring. One of the great things about this gig that we got going on is that waking up before the you-know-what crack of dawn, there are many times where you are able to get a few extra hours with the family that many people don't get to normally enjoy. It's just nature of the business. So, and given the fact that my wife recently, well, not so recently now, a few months ago, stepped away from her 9 to 5, so to speak, to go pursue other endeavors and passions that she has. Incredibly proud of that decision, along with my brother-in-law, who just made a decision to go out on his own as well. But nonetheless, my wife, little Sophia, we took a ride to the beach yesterday, spent a few hours in the sun on a Monday. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful yesterday. Just a picture-perfect North Carolina beach day, mid-September. And to think at this time 3 years ago, like literally the exact day 3 years ago. Well, my kid was taking her first steps, and I was watching it through my phone because the family was up in New Jersey, my wife and daughter, and they were visiting some family, and then we started to keep an eye, of course, in the week or so ahead of, well, what would be Hurricane Florence, and, well, 3 years ago to the day. Having lived here for now over 15 years, I mean, fortunately, it was the first, but certainly not the last time a serious weather event will hit the region. And I know last year some folks down in Southport along the coast in Brunswick County, Oak Island, dealt with the hurricane that hammered that area of our region. And in seeing some images pop up on my Facebook feed and hearing others talk about it in some of the morning newscasts, I was like, all right, well, coming off the 20th remembrance of 9/11 over the weekend, getting completely choked up Sunday night watching the 60 Minutes. I don't typically watch that news program anymore, but it just happened to be on following football. We're getting dinner ready, and like literally I had to turn the channel because I was just getting completely choked up and emotional about things, and I wanted to put on a good face for the family on Sunday night. And, well, that's what we'll try and do here this morning. Talk about the resiliency of our community and the ability for us to bounce back like this area has done so many times before in the many, many decades prior to me ever setting foot within the Cape Fear region. But hard to forget what many of us were doing this time 3 years ago as Hurricane Florence bear down here on the North Carolina coastline. And I know we're not out of the clear just yet when it comes to the Atlantic hurricane season of 2021. In fact, following our good buddy Joe Bastardi over at Weather Bell, we've got disturbance moving onto the coast of Texas this morning. And there are still some things keeping an eye out as far as tropical waves coming off the coast of Africa, and he's predicting a fairly busy next 4 to 5 week stretch to round out the traditional hurricane season. So just a reminder today that we always need to be prepared and ready to go and remain vigilant in these times, given where we live right in Hurricane Alley. But there's no need to bring up another bad image in the mind this morning. Too much of that stuff going on these days. Don't need another layer of ridiculousness and many things that are completely out of our control. Too much of that stuff going on. So yesterday, today, absolutely beautiful morning here across southeastern North Carolina. Heck of a beach day on a Monday. I mean, in fact, the weather has been just gorgeous as of late. Beach days are the best after Labor Day. No one was out there yesterday. Get that, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks before it starts to get a little cooler. And hell, even when it cools down, I mean, you can still sit at the beach for a few hours to get some sun. And I got to say, sitting at the beach and hanging with the family is much better than watching some committee hearing in Washington, D.C., or to sit around and hunker over your news feed to get the hot takes from a kid you went to high school with who you disagree with politically. I'm not sure if you caught the Secretary of State yesterday, but 4 clowns on the bozo meter. I mean, this administration just seems completely over their head at every turn, and it appears the only thing they're focused on at this point is pushing through their agenda at all costs. I mean, Secretary Blinken looked out of his league yesterday as he's getting questions from all angles during the House hearing today. Senators will put forth their questions. It was 5 hours of a hearing yesterday. We'll have another 5 today. And essentially what I got out of the Cliff Notes was that he admitted that there was no plan to withdraw from Afghanistan and then tried to blame President Trump for it. Essentially, he says President Trump put forth the withdrawal, but we never received a plan. Well, President Trump is no longer in office, and the commander-in-chief, who presently serves as the top executive in our federal government, anytime he goes off the script, as we saw yesterday again, touring some of the damage from the wildfires out west and then trying to go give Gavin Newsom a boost with the California recall taking place today out in La La Land. Well, President Biden getting ready to ask an administrator yesterday during this roundtable discussion in Idaho about some questions regarding the wildfire. And, well, anyone who was tuned into that through the White House feed, well, never got the back end of that conversation because the White House cut the feed after President Biden decided that he was going to go off the script and continue the conversation a little longer than his handlers would have liked. Something that we have commonly seen over the course of the last few months when President Biden doesn't follow the orders by those pulling the strings behind the curtain. We're 16 minutes past the hour. Locally, we're still dealing with some fallout from this video recording that was posted last week starring some employees at New Hanover Regional Medical Center. In fact, as I was at the beach yesterday afternoon, I got an email from one of the people at the hospital asking if I wanted to get more background on what they were discussing based on things that they had heard me talk about here on the program. So we know they're listening. And I know we're close to hitting the nail on the head because over the past 2 weeks, we've had multiple people reaching out to talk after I had mentioned a story involving them. First, it was George Taylor and True Colors Brewing. And now the hospital has offered themselves up to answer any questions that I may have, whether it be concerning the video that was leaked, concerning any COVID, assuming related questions that I have. They don't want to speak publicly outside of what Novant Health has released as far as the statement they put out over the weekend, taking no responsibility for the words and conversation that was had, behind closed doors, taking no responsibility for comments like this.
Maybe we need to be completely a little bit more scary. We have to say something coming out, you don't get vaccinated, you're going to die.
Taking no responsibility for comments like this from a medical professional, a doctor, and essentially placing blame on people like me and others in the community for spreading quote unquote, misinformation. But they're happy to answer questions I might have. I don't know about you, but in digging and looking into some of the background of those who took part of the conversation, particularly the medical doctors, specifically the medical doctors and professionals in that conversation, I don't know about you, but I sure as hell wouldn't be taking any medical advice from somebody who has that line of thought, no matter what they've seen or what they've witnessed over the course of 2 weeks, or 2 years rather, let alone, well, we're not going to get into physical features and characteristics of those that we are talking about here this morning. I'm not sure I have any questions for the hospital at this point when you have a medical doctor, a supposed professional, actually entertaining the idea, whether it was in jest or in seriousness, of telling people that if you don't get a vaccine, you're going to die. That's really all I need to know about the individual. And in fact, we had a pretty good conversation yesterday with Dr. Sal Giorgiani of the Men's Health Network. And in following him, getting to know Dr. Sal over multiple appearances, phone calls, email exchanges, he's a guy I trust when it comes to medical knowledge. And yesterday, he really couldn't provide us some answers to basic questions that we have. 2 years into this mess, why are doctors hesitant to prescribe therapeutics and other medications and antibiotics, particularly early on in a diagnosis? Why is there hesitation? Why is it that with every other illness, sickness, viral infection, why is it that with COVID, we aren't doing what we've done for patients for every other virus that we've ever dealt with when it comes to early treatment and other efforts to help mitigate symptoms? And why are we not researching and studying the millions of people who have had COVID to know more about, what is known as natural immunity? And that's not to say I'm against the vaccine. If you haven't had COVID and you're in danger and your medical doctor encourages you to get the jab, then that's your personal choice. So nothing I said there was anti-vax or misinformation. It was a basic question that, a doctor I could trust and do trust didn't really have an answer for me. It doesn't add up. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. We'll hear from attorney Thom Goolsby a little later on in the show. Billy Prempeh is a congressional candidate from the state in which I once hailed from, in New Jersey. In fact, he's a native of Paterson, New Jersey, also an Air Force veteran, and he's running for Congress. And Billy has been making the rounds throughout the country, expressing his thoughts on the issues of the day. And over the past 2 years, of course, we've heard a lot from many different groups of people and organizations. And then they sort of fade away, create all sorts of turmoil and chaos. And then, well, some of their candidates win, and apparently all the issues go away. Haven't heard from Black Lives Matter lately, have we? Well, for decades, as you know, Black Americans have trusted Democrat politicians to supposedly fix their communities. Well, go up to Paterson and ask Billy what his city's like these days. Well, he says it's time for minorities, specifically Black Americans, to wake up and vote for real change, as opposed to the same old that simply does not work. We'll talk with Billy Prempeh. He'll be our first guest this morning, and he'll join us in about 45 minutes. Attorney Thom Goolsby in the second hour of our show as well. We're just getting rolling here on the Big Talker FM, 22 minutes past the hour.
Termites, mosquitoes, roaches, spiders. The list of insects and pests goes on and on. So how do you keep them all at bay and out of your home? Call the professionals at Bugno Pest Control. That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal. Bugno Pest Control can not only eliminate insects and pests from in and around your home, they also guarantee it. They are fully licensed and insured, family owned and operated for all your pest control needs. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit BugnoPestControl.com. Rated 5 stars on Angie's List and HomeAdvisor.com.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
O'Leary's Automotive Repair has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
Mike check, Mike check. It's Yael Osowski here, Deputy Director of the Consumer Choice Center. You'll hear me every Friday at 9:30 on the Mornings with Joe Catenacci Show, giving you the latest in consumer news, analysis, and political topics to make sure you get your consumer fix. Then hear me and my radio partner in crime, David Clement, on the Consumer Choice Radio Show, Saturdays at 10. Only here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
When I tell people I'm a collision repair technician, they usually say, "Can I get your number?" Sooner or later, they're going to need me. I'm the guy who you call when you had a fender bender, who takes your mangled car and brings it back to its former glory. I absolutely love what I do. I trained at CFCC and had job offers waiting on me when I finished. I make great money and can work anywhere. People rely on me. That's a good feeling. I got my start at CFCC, and you can too. Visit cfcc.edu/trades.
You hear that local spot from Cape Fear Community College coming out of the break, and the many different programs that they offer right now. Data that I saw this morning from the North Carolina Workforce website shows there are 80,000 more jobs listed right now in North Carolina than there are people applying for them. 80,000 more jobs listed right now here in the state than there are people applying for them. And we have Democrats up at the North Carolina General Assembly launching a new push this week to extend and increase the amount of money paid out in unemployment benefits. They want the weekly payments raised to around $500 a week. This comes, of course, after the extra federal benefits expired a few weeks back. 80,000 job openings here in North Carolina, then there are people applying for them. And that's the Democrat plan. Continue to extend and bolster the benefits for those who remain on the sidelines for one reason or the other. Two very different viewpoints as far as how we move forward from this mess of a situation surrounding COVID. We mentioned the fallout from the leaked video and some contact I received from the hospital yesterday wanting to help clear the air of any questions that I may have for them. Well, we do know, thankfully, that we're beginning to see, of course, some of the hospitalization numbers drop across North Carolina. And as we've seen throughout the course of the past 2 years, when you have another wave of cases and hospitalizations, as those numbers start to drop, you begin to see, unfortunately, the death total increase as it's a lagging factor in the numbers. This is what we've witnessed for 2 years. So this time around, with the new variant, we should expect to see exactly what's playing out. And again, we're not, of course, here to spread misinformation, as the hospital network pointed to last weekend when they had to release the statement based on the leaked video. No responsibility, again, for taking the words that were put out there by a medical doctor. We need to scare people, and we need to be blunt and forceful about it, and we need to basically tell people if they don't get the shot, they're going to die. Medical professional. You go look her up, by the way, and you can share your thoughts if you'd like at 910-299-7535. The website Campus Reform does a great job in exposing the rotten to the core mindset that we see on many of our college campuses and universities. Yesterday, we touched on it just a bit, and later this morning, Angela Morabito from Campus Reform is going to join us to shed some light on this course offering up in Chapel Hill, this class called Global Whiteness, which involves student presentations on Trump and interracial hookups on campus. Well, Campus Reform obtained the fall 2021 syllabus, and we'll hear from Angela on the latest, par for the course effort by many within our institutions of quote-unquote higher learning to not encourage critical thought and to engage in debate from all angles and viewpoints, but to push a narrative and agenda on our young people to mold their minds further with crap like what we're seeing in Chapel Hill and on many other college campuses across the country. And apparently, speaking of our local hospital, well, both of the local TV outlets are reporting on Monday that the chief operating officer at New Hanover Regional Medical Center is no longer with the organization. This guy making about $500,000 a year. And apparently in 2020, well, just 8 months ago, New Hanover Regional Medical Center announced that the former chief operating officer was named one of Industry Era magazine's 10 best COOs of 2020. And in its feature, the magazine noted that the former chief operating officer had, quote, made innovation a significant part of the culture at New Hanover Regional Medical Center. 8 months later, well, he's looking for a new job. You have to wonder why. And we kind of knew with the hospital sale, though, on that note, that there were going to be staff changes and there are going to be some news-related items, I feel, non-COVID related, coming out of our local hospital over the next several months as Novant Health gets its hands around, well, what was once a local community hospital. We've hit the bottom of the hour. Caller, if you'd like to hold on, we've got a 2-minute break. All other phone calls at 910-299-7535.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. The National Hurricane Center in Miami says Hurricane Nicholas has made landfall along the Texas coast, bringing the threat of up to 20 inches of rainfall to parts of the Gulf Coast. The Hurricane Center says the storm touched down with maximum winds of 75 miles per hour. Nicholas was the 14th named storm of the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says authorities have placed rescue teams and resources in the Houston area and along the coast. Storm-battered Louisiana was also expected to see heavy rain and flooding from Nicholas. Today also marks the third anniversary of when Hurricane Florence arrived in the Cape Fear. The eye of the hurricane crossed Wrightsville Beach at 7:15 a.m. The storm produced a record-breaking rainfall for 2 days, some places recording more than 30 inches of rain. Record flooding developed along the Cape Fear, Northeast Cape Fear, Lumberton, and Waccamaw rivers. Wind gusts exceeded more than 100 miles per hour. The Category 1 hurricane caused 42 fatalities and $24 billion in damage. State health officials are also urging you to get vaccinated against influenza as the state enters flu season while experiencing a COVID surge caused by the Delta variant. State health director says it's critically important to get both your flu vaccine and your COVID-19 vaccine. The CDC recommends flu vaccinations for everyone 6 months and older. Flu infections are the most common from late fall to early spring, with activity usually peaking in January or February. And more good news for UNCW. It's one of 3 UNC schools ranked among the top 100 public national universities by U.S. News and World Report. This is the third year that UNCW has made the top 100 best national public universities list. UNCW tied with Oklahoma State University and the University of Louisville for 96th place. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, we are looking pretty good for just one more day today. We're expecting a carbon copy of yesterday's weather with temperatures getting back up into the upper 80s, low 90s inland of the coast. And along the immediate coastline, we're going to get into the middle 80s with a good deal of sunshine. And the humidity certainly going to slowly but surely start to increase over the course of the afternoon hours. But tonight, our temperatures are going to be dropping down into the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
I'll talk about a tear-jerking, heartbreaking story coming out of Southern California yesterday, nearly 1 month after he was killed. Fallen Marine Lance Corporal Riley McCullum of Jackson, Wyoming. Well, his wife gave birth to a little baby girl. She was born Monday. Levi Riley Rose McCullum, born Monday, 8 pounds, 10 ounces, born at the Naval Hospital at Camp Pendleton in California. Incredibly sad. 910-299-7535 is our number. Caller, thanks for holding. What you got? Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Joe. Thanks so much for all you do. I enjoy listening to you every morning.
Thank you.
Going back, yeah, no, you're welcome. I just wanted to offer up a couple of questions for Novant when you speak with them.
Yeah.
So the narrative that the hospital is pushing and the media is pushing is that the one commonality for all these patients in there is that they're unvaccinated.
Right.
But I believe that there is more. I have heard from someone who knows a nurse that worked on that floor, and every patient that was on that floor, according to this nurse, was obese. I've also seen the commonality of, in diabetes, we've they have spoken of that, but they don't put that out there. And that is a question I would really love to have answered, is how many of those patients are overweight, and probably excessively overweight. I'm not talking, 5 or 10 pounds.
Right.
Like, that's I think, a very important.
The limited amount of information that we have received over the course of 2 years, and I get to an extent, the hospital unwilling and unwanting to provide, specific details on every patient, and that's probably where they're going to direct me. Well, we don't give information on specific patients. We just, tally up the numbers. But, well, based on what we sort of know, given we've been through 2 years of this. And yes, there are outliers and there are stories, and my wife is pretty good at cherry picking every one of them, saying, oh, look at that generally healthy 33-year-old that died, or, someone else. And it's incredibly tragic and sad. But the overwhelming numbers, so when it comes to the hospitalizations and the deaths from this thing, as you had mentioned, overweight, obese, dealing with multiple health-related issues prior to coming in contact, and age are the two biggest factors in all of this. Yet those two pieces of the conversation somehow, some way, are left out of all of this. Why?
Exactly.
I don't mean to yell at you this morning. It's just frustrating.
Nope. Right.
Why? Why? Why is that? Why is it that for any other infection that has been known to man since, well, I've only been here for 38 years, but anytime I've gotten sick and gone to the doctor, they've prescribed me some sort of antibiotic or some sort of medication to help mitigate some of the symptoms. Why with COVID have we been hesitant to do that for 2 years? No one could give us a solid answer on that either. They just say, get the jab.
They won't give you a solid answer, but, and that's the thing, is you look at how much money the vaccine companies have made over the past year from this vaccine, and they would not have the authorization. The emergency use authorization would not be allowed to go through if there were ways of treating COVID. So everybody's hush, hush. No. Can't treat it. Just get the jab.
In fact, and thanks for the call. In fact, I have a friend of mine, and she just got over, COVID, and it hit her hard. And originally and initially, and she still thinks this, even though, she tested positive and actually has parted ways with her primary care doctor since getting diagnosed with, what she thought was a sinus infection to begin with. And she said, hey, doc, I got a sinus infection. Immediately, they went to the COVID test, and she tested positive. And she's like, yeah, but I feel it in my sinus cavity. I've had sinus infections before. I have an understanding of my body, and I understand what I need to try and fight this thing. And he wouldn't prescribe it to her. Why? Was it going to hurt her anymore if she was prescribed the antibiotics that she typically has received over the course of her lifetime when she gets a sinus infection and feels it's coming on again? Why? And she was irate and then got to a point where, well, she nearly had to be hospitalized, and she packs a couple extra pounds, admittedly. But she said, I went in, I felt okay. Immediately, within a day or two of starting to feel under the weather, I said, hey, could you get me an antibiotic? I feel like I got a sinus infection coming on. And he wouldn't give it to her. And then she progressively got worse and was this close, to going to the hospital. And then basically her mom came in from Virginia to help her out. And her mom's like, you're not going to the hospital. And they worked themselves through it at home. I mean, I don't know. I guess there are so many different stories and so many different tales that we can tell. And I don't know if that's misinformation. It's a friend that I know and trust and have known her for 10, 12 years. She wouldn't be misleading me on this. It's what she experienced. So when you bring something up like that, how is that spreading misinformation? Why wasn't she able to gain access to, a medication that she's taken many times before for a similar type feeling that she in her body felt was coming on? And instead, now has parted ways with a doctor that, she's known and who has cared for her since she moved here from VA years ago. It's amazing. And then it's just beyond me that a medical professional, and I guess, behind the scenes, they talk about this, that, and the other. And I don't know what the experience has been like from their angle inside the hospital. Of course, it's been incredibly taxing. But there's just mindset of just, get the jab, shut up, stay in the corner. There's no way convincing many of the people I know, including myself, because you can't answer basic questions for those who have already battled through the virus. And you can't answer simple questions related to providing antibiotics and other sort of therapeutics to help mitigate the symptoms early on. You can't answer those simple things as a medical professional. I've got a hard time listening to anything else that you may have to say about this, that, or the other. So we find other doctors who are willing to at least admit, I don't really have an answer for you as to why we have denied decades worth of research and science and studies, particularly related to mitigation and medication that can help. Particularly related to this conversation around, natural immunity. Why? Why are we hesitant to talk about it and provide a full picture, which then, in my mind, if you're willing to be open and transparent and deliver some commentary on these sorts of things, I truly believe that you'd win over some of those who remain on the fence. So I'm not really sure I have any questions for the local hospital at this point, because you've been unwilling to provide any sort of recommendation or public awareness campaign on certain things that have been administered in many other places around the country for months. Now, Governor Cooper, and to his credit, recently signed an executive order expanding access to these sorts of things. But why has it taken 2 years to do that? We'll be talking with Billy Prempeh. He's a congressional candidate up in the state of New Jersey just after 8 o'clock. Billy's an Air Force veteran, and he's a candidate running from the heart of Paterson, New Jersey. And that's one of the most impoverished areas up from where I'm from. And that city, in shambles as what it once was. And Billy's going to talk a little bit about American privilege, this morning as an Air Force officer and the son of legal immigrants. We'll get Billy's take here in about 20 minutes. Also, attorney Thom Goolsby in the second hour, and really looking forward to Angela Morabito of Campus Reform. He'll be highlighting this latest course being offered up in Chapel Hill titled Global Whiteness, and what some of the other research that she's done in reporting on our college campuses that has opened her eyes to the state of higher education in our country.
You may find yourself living in a shotgun shack, and you may find yourself in another part of the world, and you may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile, and you may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife, and you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
Is your dog or cat a picky eater or suffer with skin and food allergies or excessive shedding? Did you know dry food was the #1 cause of these health problems? Vicki Glisson has fed over 3 generations of Cane Corso dogs a raw diet every day for the past 12 years and developed an easy, affordable system that costs less than dry kibble. You have nothing to lose when you take our 30-day raw feeding challenge. If your pet doesn't improve in 30 days, we'll refund your purchase price. Let's get your pet naturally healthy, naturally happy today. Visit heavensenthealthypet.com.
All right, the school year is getting started for millions across the nation. Chances are your child's learning environment is not going to be a perfect one. Now, Acellus Power Homeschool, they have become the answer for both schools and for parents that have decided to bring their child's classroom either partially home or for full-time homeschooling. Now, parents worry that their kids are getting behind in math because schools had to close last year, and other parents worry if their kids are on track to read at their grade level. And now we're worried again that our kids might face disruptions this school year. Now, at powerhomeschool.org, it's one word, you're going to see how parents can control their children's education by offering online courses at home taught by some of America's greatest teachers. Now, it's especially effective if your student is struggling or students with learning disabilities. If you are considering homeschooling or looking to fill any gaps at home, please visit powerhomeschool.org. That's powerhomeschool.org today.
When your AC stops, don't despair. Just go.
Go where? The South Pole?
Go Southern Comfort Heating and Air. For preventive maintenance, service, and repair, go there.
Where?
Southern Comfort Heating and Air.
Are they fair?
Fair and square. Low prices, speedy service, and technicians who care. When your AC stops, don't stare. Go there.
Is there a website you can share?
Go southerncomfort.com. If you go anywhere else, beware.
I swear.
Call 910-524-7609.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I wanted to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
I don't feel sorry for people who are living in million-dollar houses and are complaining about people like me trying to take care of everyone.
Maybe we need to be completely a little bit more scary. We have to say something coming out, you don't get vaccinated, you're going to die.
It's a dumpster fire.
I'm not putting words in the mouths of anyone. You're hearing it directly from, well, those who are supposedly leading our community, whether it be in health, in government. Well, you heard the clips for yourself. That's what we call leadership in the year 2021 here in New Hanover County, at our hospital and within our elected government at the local level. Lord help us. 910-299-7535. It doesn't get any better the higher up you go in government, as, well, frankly, I was not interested in listening to the Secretary of State for 5 hours yesterday, getting grilled by members of the House. We'll do it again today with the Senate. By the way, I'm not really sure, this theater that they continue to put on, why the guy can't go on location and actually sit with the congressional figures. He opted to Zoom, which, takes all of the emotion and, face-to-face sort of body language and contact that you can really, dig your heels in on. It takes all of that emotional element out of, a very serious discussion that they're supposedly having in Washington surrounding Afghanistan and that mess. Well, reports that were coming out of the war-stricken country. A UN official on Monday said that the Taliban is can you believe this, folks? The Taliban is breaking promises it made about its treatment of women and house-to-house searches. Huh. I mean, who would have thought that the 13th century goat herders in a part of the world that struggles to have running water and electricity run through its villages and cities consistently. As you heard testimony on this program, of course, on prior shows from folks who have actually been on the ground in that region of the world, giving us a little insight into, well, their approach, particularly women. They've got no problem digging a hole and throwing a teenage girl in it and stoning her to death because, well, she doesn't want to become the fifth wife of a 65-year-old man. Well, those are the folks we just handed over, well, a country that we've been involved with for half of my life. And now, well, who knew? That the Taliban is breaking its promises surrounding the treatment of women and house-to-house searches. Yesterday, the Secretary of State admits that charter flights are not being allowed to leave Afghanistan, and that while there may be 100 or so U.S. citizens that want to get out, that have been left behind in the war-torn country, well, there are hundreds and maybe even a couple of thousand others who have been working side by side with us for the better part of 20 years to weed out terrorist activity in that region of the world, and other green card holders who, well, we just said, hey, good luck, we're leaving. And then the Secretary of State has the gall to, well, try and place all of the blame on President Trump. Now, we were never given a plan on how to withdraw. We were just given a date. And on the drone attack that supposedly spoiled an imminent plan to create more chaos at the airport in Kabul, well, we can't provide details on that because we haven't yet investigated the matter, and I'm not willing to provide the identities of those that we supposedly killed either. Well, Secretary, how are we going to investigate this if we have no boots on the ground and most of our intelligence has left that area of the country? Well, I don't want to get ahead of, those responsible for looking into this further. And the kicker in all of this, well, now apparently, according to a number of reports, We're getting ready to send another $65 million in humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. For who the hell knows what we'll be providing that aid for. Another $65 million. Well, I guess in the grand scheme of things, given that we're trillions upon trillions upon trillions in debt and on our way to spend another $5 trillion on infrastructure or whatever you want to call it these days, human infrastructure. Write the check. Send some pallets of cash over there. I'm sure it'll be well spent by the Taliban. The Taliban. Savannah Viar is with the Republican National Committee, and she has some thoughts on yesterday's committee hearing surrounding Secretary Blinken, Secretary of State, who was getting grilled and pressed on the situation in Afghanistan. And we'll get her thoughts to start the third hour of our program. When we get back, Billy Prempeh is going to join us, a congressional candidate in the state of New Jersey. He has some thoughts on what he calls American privilege. As a black man running for office in the heart of Paterson, New Jersey, on the Republican side of the ticket, he says it's time for minorities to wake up, specifically black Americans. You want real change? Well, I have ideas, thoughts, and a background in leadership as an Air Force officer and veteran to help try and, turn my broken city around. We'll hear from Billy here in about 5 or 6 minutes, and attorney Thom Goolsby with us as well. Another COVID BS-related news. Well, the FDA is expected to discuss booster shots for people 16 and older later this week. Of course, to no surprise, Moderna and Pfizer say they've seen good results after boosting at the 6-month mark. I mean, why wouldn't Moderna and Pfizer say that? Though, the international group of scientists came out yesterday, including 2 senior FDA officials who were reportedly resigning from their posts because of their disagreements with the White House on the administration of booster shots. They say, the available evidence doesn't yet indicate a need for vaccine booster shots among the general population. So will we be listening to the big medical companies, or will we be listening to the scientists? But I guess it's a very difficult thing when the scientists don't really have answers for you. Just as we heard from To New York himself over the weekend on CNN.
And just real quickly, there was a study that came out of Israel about natural immunity. And basically the headline was that natural immunity provides a lot of protection, even better than the vaccines alone. What are people to make of that? So as we talk about vaccine mandates, I get calls all the time. People say, I've already had COVID, I'm protected, and now the study says maybe even more protected than the vaccine alone. Should they also get the vaccine? How do you make the case to them?
That's a really good point, Sanjay. I don't have a really firm answer for you on that.
Yeah, that's all you need to know. I don't really have a really firm answer. The leading bureaucrat and the highest paid federal government official here in the United States doesn't have a really good answer 2 years in a pandemic about those who have come in contact with COVID and feel that they have natural immunity. Don't really have a good answer.
We're building back better together and building back greener and building back fairer and building back more equal and how shall I, more in a more gender neutral and perhaps a more feminine way.
The leaders of 2021.
Keeping Ocean Isle informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
There is division within the FDA. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis standing strong against vaccine mandates.
If a government agency in the state of Florida forces
a vaccine as a condition to employment, that violates Florida law.
DeSantis threatening local governments with $5,000 fines per violation. Secretary of State Blinken has a date today with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The topic, Afghanistan. Yesterday's session before the House Foreign Affairs Committee got a bit heated. Republican and Afghan war veteran Brian Mast mixing it up with Blinken and the committee chairman, Democrat Gregory Meeks.
I don't wish to hear your lies.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Yes, the secretary.
The secretary can answer the question.
I didn't ask him a question.
You did ask a question.
I don't want to hear from the secretary.
The gentleman's time
he lies
has
to us
expired.
when he steps in front of the camera.
We're here to hear from the secretary.
Not to hear lies.
After roaring ashore in Texas as a hurricane, Nicholas, now a tropical storm, dumping rain, posing serious flooding threats to parts of Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. The National Weather Service's Kent Prohaska says there is damage.
Multiple trees down all along in these coastal counties. We've had some gas stations with the awnings have been blown over. Some roofs have lost some the metal sheeting on some of the smaller buildings next to it. And extensive power outages from all of the wind.
Californians go to the polls today deciding whether to boot Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom from office in favor of Republican Larry Elder or any of the other 40-plus candidates. Watching Wall Street, Dow futures down 46 points, NASDAQ futures off 24. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Tell me why Relief Factor is so successful in lowering or eliminating pain. I'm often asked that question. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father and son founders of Relief Factor, tell me they believe our bodies were designed to heal. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, 100% drug-free ingredients that each help your body deal with inflammation. Order the 3-week quick start now. Discount it to only $19.95 to see if it will work for you too. Call 800-500-8384. ReliefFactor.com.
The United States has killed Osama bin Laden.
Hours after that announcement, the White House leaked that it was SEAL Team 6 that carried out the operation. Al-Qaeda placed bounties on the heads of all Navy SEALs. Then just 3 months later, a U.S. Army helicopter carrying many from SEAL Team 6 and others.
Anybody out there? We have a fallen angel. Fallen angel. Roger.
Fallen Angel, Extortion 1-7. The story most Americans don't know. Watch exclusively at salemnow.com.
A new global survey documents high anxiety among young people over climate change. A majority of those polled say they're very or extremely worried about it.
This survey, led by the University of Bath, claims to be the biggest on young people's thoughts and feelings about climate change. It says more than 45% of those questioned said the way they felt about the climate affected their daily lives. 2/3 reported feeling sad, anxious and afraid. Some felt hope, but more felt fear, anger, despair, grief, and even shame. The survey suggests that 4 out of 10 are hesitant to have children because of climate change.
The BBC's Roger Harabin. Russian President Putin going into self-quarantine because of coronavirus cases in his inner circle. The Kremlin says that Putin himself has tested negative for COVID-19 and is fully vaccinated. News and analysis at townhall.com. Organizers of an upcoming rally on the National Mall insist it will be a peaceful gathering, but authorities in D.C. are preparing for the worst.
Taking no chances, Capitol Police and other law enforcement officials are ramping up security measures ahead of Saturday's rally in Washington to support the rioters to storm the Capitol earlier this year. Capitol Police have installed temporary high-tech security cameras to allow them a vaster view of the Capitol complex. A Capitol Security Board on Monday approved a plan to reinstall a 7-foot fence around the main Capitol building, which had stood for months after January's violent assault. The board has also issued an emergency declaration, which will allow Capitol Police to deputize outside law enforcement as special Capitol Police officers on Saturday. Bernie Bennett, Washington.
House Democrats have taken the wraps off a sweeping tax hike plan affecting individuals and businesses to fund President Biden's $3.5 trillion spending proposal. Again, on Wall Street this hour, Dow futures are down 56 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Another beautiful morning here along the Carolina coastline. 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Once again, overlooking Battleship, North Carolina, here on the banks of the Cape Fear River. Great to be with you, as always, here on The Big Talker, 106.7 FM. Of course, you can find us through various platforms these days on social media. Video portion of the program available by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Facebook at The Big Talker 106.7 FM. Audio stream available on our website at bigtalkerfm.com. And a podcast version of the show usually uploads just after 10 o'clock Eastern Time each and every weekday on my website at joecats.com. Billy Prempeh is a congressional candidate for my home state of New Jersey, and I enjoy the area code in which I dialed in this morning. Billy, it's great to have you on our show, and I hope all is well up in the Garden State today. Good morning.
Joe, thank you very much for having me on air, brother. It's a pleasure.
And, well, talk to me a little bit about your background, what kind of got you engaged in the political discourse, and, how you feel as an American privileged individual to toss your name in the hat for a seat in our Congress in Washington, D.C.
I'm glad you mentioned a privileged American, because that's the truth. It's like, I don't believe in white privilege. I don't believe in black privilege. The only thing that I believe in is American privilege, because truth be told, there's no country on the planet that's quite like America. And just being born in the United States, or even being an American, is a privilege. And that's something that I absolutely want to preserve. I'm only 31 years old. I decided to, join the United States Air Force and fight for my country after my parents came to this country and gave so much back. I decided to give back to my country. And the truth is, like, even though I'm a young person, I see our country going in a very horrible direction. And if no one stands up and does anything about this, I don't see the next generation being able to fully enjoy the United States in the same way that I was. And even now, I see it going in a horrible direction. So I had to stand up and do something about it. I look to bring new ideas to Congress as well as across the United States in terms of education reform, giving our police what's necessary to keep our communities safe, as well as bringing job opportunities to inner cities like mine. I'm from Paterson, New Jersey. It's a very deeply blue Democrat district. Well, at least that's what people believe. The truth is the Republicans haven't actually engaged in that area. There's 3 times as many unaffiliated voters than there are Republicans in our district. And we have great ideas. We have incredible ideas. But because there's no Republicans out here doing it just the way that I'm doing it, we don't really have any alternative ideas. And that's why I'm trying to bring that to the 9th District. And I want to flip this district red. I have the capacity to do it. We just had our campaign kickoff yesterday, actually, which was a tremendous, tremendous success. You guys can look at the videos and pictures at my social media. Just type Billy Prempeh online, and you'll see everything about that. And I believe that now is the ultimate opportunity to make a difference. And I'm throwing my hat in the ring because nobody else will do it. And I have what it takes to actually bring some changes to this district.
Billy, having a good feel for where you grew up, and given that I was just down the road for pretty much my youth and through college, I got a pretty good understanding of Paterson. How do you get into the minds of those voters and those constituents who probably have voted Democrat for their entire lifetime, their parents' entire lifetime, their grandparents' entire lifetime? How do you break that trend?
Well, so in order for me to tell you that, is like, this isn't my first rodeo. In 2020, I ran against Bill Pascrell. He's been in office for over 24 years. Paterson and even the 9th District. The reason why I bring up Paterson a lot is because Paterson makes up 35% of the district. Almost all of the voters are in Paterson. And they've been controlled by Democrats for well over 50 to 60 years. And when you look at the numbers of the 9th District as a whole between all the cities, you'll see that there's 202,000 Democrats, 69,000 plus Republicans, but there's 179,000 plus Republicans. And when I started to see the previous trends, the most a Republican ever got in a 9th district was 65,000. But when I ran in 2020, despite the pandemic, despite no support from the GOP, despite minimal funding, I got more votes than any Republican in the past 35 years, and I cracked the number by shifting an additional 33,000 unaffiliated voters to vote for a Republican for the first time ever. The truth is, this isn't a deep blue district. This isn't an area that's impossible to win. What needs to happen is we need engagement. We need someone that's willing to go out there and give new ideas, because these unaffiliated voters, if they wanted to be Democrats, they would be Democrats, but they're not. They're choosing to be unaffiliated because there's no Republicans or any other alternative party that's trying to bring new ideas. I'm that guy. I've brought it. I've shown it. I know the method works because I've done what no one's ever done before. And in 2022, we're going to flip this district red. So we're starting early. We're raising capital. We're knocking doors. We're making phone calls. And we're doing everything that needs to be done to actually bring true representation to this district.
Billy Prempeh is a congressional candidate up in New Jersey, as you heard on the Republican side. I think that's what irks me the most, Billy. And I know resources are poured into areas where, frankly, the establishment believes that they have a chance to win, and that is completely turning me off to these establishment type of politicians and within party politics, because who's to say that your district, like any other, is not an area with the right candidate at the right time in the right place with the proper investment, given what we've been through, particularly through the last 2 years of this pandemic, particularly what the state of New Jersey continues to go through with the mass exodus of people, including my family, over the course of the last 6, 7, 8, 10 years. Who's to say that it's not ripe for the picking, and that you may be the guy that can bring historic change to where you grew up and are so passionate about trying to provide an opportunity for people that they never thought they may have had growing up in a place like Paterson.
See, now, here's the thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, because the truth is, if the Republican Party really, really wants to win, me as a military guy, my strategy is this. If we're going to win a fight, we can win several battles in the red districts, great. But the real war is in the areas where it's deep blue. All these areas are in the inner cities. These are the areas where the Democrats have had control for a very, very long time. But the only reason why they do, and the reason why they control the bulk of the votes, is because they are in the inner cities. They're in the large cities where there's hundreds of thousands of voters. When people become citizens of the United States, guess who's out there at the immigration stations? It's the Democrats. Republicans aren't there. They're not in front of the schools. They're not recruiting. They're not teaching people what needs to be done. But I'm willing to do that. And my whole goal is to show the Republican Party that if we really, really want to win, we have to fight the fights that nobody's willing to fight. This is one of those fights. And I've showed how it was possible. All by myself and with a handful of people, about 8 to 12 people on my team, we shifted 33,000 votes in the Republican district with less than $30,000 that we raised in that campaign in 2020. We've got a lot more now. We've got national attention. We're growing fast. And there's nothing that anybody can do to stop the movement that we've got. We're in a midterm election. My opponent's 84 years old. He's been in Congress for 24 years. He falls asleep in Congress all the time. We're going to take him down this time.
I mean, when you see, you're a political opponent and others in Washington or in any level of government at 84 years old, that's not to say, he may not bring a wealth of experience and knowledge to the job. But what has changed in Paterson for the better or throughout the district, during his term in office and 84 years old, what new bold ideas is he bringing to present some change and some hope, for future generations that are coming up through your district?
Well, the truth be told, he's bringing nothing. Like, he stands for what I like to call systemic political corruption. I'll give you an example. His son, Bill Pascrell III, is a multimillionaire lobbyist who made almost all of his money working as a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., where he'd made millions of dollars lobbying and selling access to his father. He got a job for council in Passaic County, acting as a council, never showed up because he was making more money in D.C., even though he was getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in Passaic County. They don't represent the people. They don't care about the people. They're caught up in all kinds of political scams to put money inside of their pockets. They're not politicians. These people are pocketicians. And I look to put an end to that kind of stuff.
Billy, outside of the obvious and glaring disconnect that many of us have with the insiders in Washington D.C., what are some of the other platform items that you feel are incredibly important to help attract voters to your message?
I want them to understand that it's especially with me, like most of the people that I meet in my district have never seen a Republican at their front door, let alone a 6'2" black Republican with dreadlocks from the 4th Ward. They don't see a lot of guys like me, but the truth is we exist. We're out here. We're bringing new ideas. And the thing is, like, if we really expect to make change moving into 2022, is we have to go hard, and we have to go where no man has ever gone in the Republican Party. See, there's people that are sick and tired of the status quo, but they don't stand out. They don't come out and vote because why would they vote? All they see are Democrats. All they hear about are Democrats. And the problem is we even have some of these issues in our own party, in the Republican Party. Most of them want to keep things the way they are because they have special deals with my opponent. But I'm going to put an end to that kind of stuff. There's no more time for rhinos. There's no more time for weak leadership. At the end of the day, I have many, many friends that have died in my district that have been killed from gun violence. They're trying to defund the police. The taxes are increasing and people are being gentrified and moved out of their community. If we don't do anything about it, there's not going to be a 9th district similar to what I knew when I was growing up. I'm looking to preserve that as a conservative, and I'm looking to actually make new changes because the person that's in there is only serving his own pockets because, like I said before, he's a pocketician. He's not a politician. More importantly, he's not a civil servant. I'm in here for civil service. I'm not here to fulfill my own needs. I've already seen the best of what my district has to offer. I've seen the worst of what my district has to offer. And at the end of the day, the money means absolutely nothing because what I really care about is preserving it. I'm 31 years old. If I don't have an America in the future, what am I going to leave for my kids? What am I going to leave for the next generation? How could I, as an American veteran, sit down and say that I sat down and did nothing, even though I claim to have fought for this country, but I sat down and did nothing? That's why I decided to get in this race, because the fight doesn't just end outside of the military. It also ends with you doing your civil service as an American. If you feel disenfranchised, now is the time to get up, get involved, make your voice heard, and fight for your country, because if we don't, no one else will.
Billy, incredibly inspiring and motivating. Keep up and keep applying the pressure. Good things are going to come to you and all those that support you. I have a feeling, come November of next year. Keep up the fight. We'll be following from afar, and I hope we're able to engage in further conversation leading up to those midterm elections next November. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody else that would like to help the campaign, whether it's volunteering or even donating, because I'm going against a machine here, big time machine, you can go to www.billyprempeh.com. That's www.billyprempeh.com. Join the fight and help us take this district back.
Billy, thanks so much for the time. And, I know there are plenty of listeners here in the Cape Fear region. Well, one that are sitting there just nodding their head in agreement with a well-spoken, relatively young man, 31 years old, veteran to our country, who no doubt is saying, well, a lot of the things that we talk about on a daily basis here, but also, given that we've got plenty of transplants living here within the Cape Fear region, I know you've got family and others living up in his district and all around it. Encourage them to get behind Billy and his efforts up in New Jersey, in a place that is yearning for some sort of change and turnaround, in places like Patterson and many other cities like it, not only in New Jersey, but all across the country, including right here in North Carolina. As Billy Prempeh, a congressional candidate, up in the Garden State, my old native land. I love the area code, the 973, up in North Jersey. We're 20 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here in Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
I am State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better place.
Visit us online at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
With a customer referral rating of 96%, Two Men in a Truck Wilmington has proven time and time again they are the top local choice when it comes to all of your moving needs. Offering a wide range of professional moving services, including local and long-distance moving, business relocations, both full or partial packing services and storage, Two Men in a Truck is dedicated to exceed customer expectations and reliability, quality of service, and care. To start your quote, log on to twomenandatruck.com or call 910-210-0224.
Hear Thom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
All right, 23 minutes past the hour. Bright, young men and women seeking public office, providing, frankly, a little hope that we still have some fight left in us, particularly those, who are not entrenched in, the bureaucracy, particularly up in Washington, D.C., and as you drip down to the local level, I mean, to hear comments that we have become accustomed to hearing from, the new head of our county board of commissioners, or whether it be leaked videos from medical professionals at our local hospital. These are the leaders. We have to build back better in a more feminine way, in a more gender-neutral way. Bozo the Clown over there in the UK. 910-299-7535. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Comrade Joe.
Jersey Mike, it's been a while, my friend. I hope all is well.
Yeah, all is well. Hey, I grew up right across the Passaic River in Garfield. And, it's so funny thinking now back when I was, coming up. I don't know anybody that I grew up with that bought a house or was able to buy a house that didn't work at least 2 jobs. And the kicker is you could maybe afford a home, a fixer-upper, but when you're paying, $14,000 a year property tax, it kills you. It's just, they never caught on to that. And what you actually get for your services is nothing. So, man, what the roads are like. So, I still can't believe that none of these places have actually caught on to, we got to lower taxes to keep people here. It just amazes me.
Make it a little more affordable. When we say we're going to invest money in this, that, and the other, let's make sure that pool of money goes to this, that, and the other, and not some other, Looney Tune plan that, the guy who's been around for 55 years decides, he needs to line the pocket of somebody else. The corruption, it's everywhere. You see a little bit of it here with, sort of the good old boy network, as it were. I would say locally more than anywhere else, D's and R's sort of blend with one another, particularly, here in New Hanover County, so long as they're getting theirs, let's it don't really matter with the rest of the constituency or what letter they have next to their name.
Well, I think once they get behind closed doors, the red and blue changes to a gray or something.
Or you mean like once you go behind closed doors, you're able to say things like this?
Maybe we need to be completely a little bit more scary. We have to say something coming out. You don't get vaccinated. You're going to die.
Something like that. Like when behind closed doors, they say what they really feel.
Exactly. And I was choked up all day 9/11 watching all the stuff. Ugh. And I have to say, how could Biden go to every site and not even say one word? What was that? He's strongly,
That's what we call leadership. It just, he's a man's man. He's a guy that brings his hard hat to work, his lunch pail, and a masculine man who hides all of his feelings inside. No need to give the American people some assurances and some hope for the future, for their children, for their grandchildren. No need to do anything like that. Just walk in there silent with your aviators on, look all tough, and I don't know. It looked just the epitome of confidence as I saw him kind of wobble around and wander around to these different events this past weekend. I mean, who can honestly sit here? It's like, is this a dream or a joke? I mean, who can honestly sit here and say, we're better off with this guy, wandering around day to day and having to have his mic cut off because we're afraid what he's going to say next by his handlers.
And the fact that he keeps saying that everything's wonderful, well, we know we're supposed to create 750,000, but 200's okay, and don't worry about it, and we're not going to tax anybody, but it's going to cost you $35 for a hamburger, but everything's great.
Just leave it to us. We're going to spend some more money and we'll be happy to provide you whatever you need because we're going to invest in human infrastructure and we're going to take care of all of you from the cradle to the grave. And unfortunately, Jersey Mike, that resonates with a lot of people in our country, having somebody take care of them. They'd rather have it that way than a way in which you have at least some say in how you're able to grow and try and thrive, in the society that we live in. It's sad.
Well, I don't want to get down on the social media or anything, but I've tried something in the last couple of weeks, and I want you to try it and get back to me. I get on, so, I'm playing both sides. I love Joe Biden, like it. And when you get on there and you see all these people, you're so wonderful like that, if you actually click on the person, there's no portfolio. There's no jobs where, if you get on Facebook and you poke on there, like if you poked on me, you see where I worked, where I come from in New Jersey, blah, 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 my friends, my good boss, what my wife cooked last week. Here, there's nothing. It's just a face, no pictures, no family, no friends, no jobs. And I'm thinking, that's a pretty good algorithm they got going.
Yeah, I was going to say, a pretty good, effort by the bots behind the scenes that are pulling the strings and the levers, making something seem as it is. But in fact, it's all an image and a mirror of the reality that we all see glaringly. At least you and I and many others tuned in. I mean, it's just it's a clown show out there when you hear these people speak.
Yeah. I think we're right up there with the Oz behind the curtain.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, don't mind the man behind the curtain. He has nothing to do with it. Thanks, Jersey Mike, as always.
Bye-bye.
Hey, be good. All right, we've hit the halfway point here on this 3-hour journey each and every morning. Attorney Thom Goolsby, I'm sure, has plenty to say. We've been talking Rona for 2 years with our friend Thom, and I'm assuming that's where he's going to want to drive the conversation, or it may end up being a Ray Roy King of Tyranny type of morning for Thom, where he wants to highlight some of the shortcomings of our esteemed governor who was able to outlast Dan Forest last November, while every other Republican on the ballot somehow, some way came out on top, but not in the gubernatorial race. They tell us that this is the way North Carolina works. Still hard to believe that the state of New Jersey has had more Republican governors in its history here than the state of North Carolina. That's just sort of baffling to me. I think there may be someone in the wings on the Republican side, Mark Robinson, that could be looking at that seat when his term comes to an end as lieutenant governor. We shall see. Of course, Governor Cooper in a lame duck term, as we have, of course, restrictions on how many terms in office you can serve as the governor here in the Old North State. Issuing another veto last week that would have levied heavier penalties on those who decide to riot in the streets. Somehow, some way, the submissions of over 500 that were presented to the lieutenant governor concerning issues in the classroom within the public education system, apparently, according to the governor, it's some conspiracy that the lieutenant governor has put together with this new task force that we talked with him about last week. Attorney Thom Goolsby joins us after the timeout here on the Big Talker FM.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. The National Hurricane Center in Miami says Hurricane Nicholas has made landfall along the Texas coast, bringing the threat of up to 20 inches of rainfall to parts of the Gulf Coast. The Hurricane Center says the storm touched down with maximum winds of 75 miles per hour. Nicholas was the 14th named storm of the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says authorities have placed rescue teams and resources in the Houston area and along the coast. Storm-battered Louisiana was also expected to see heavy rain and flooding from Nicholas. Today also marks the third anniversary of when Hurricane Florence arrived in the Cape Fear. The eye of the hurricane crossed Wrightsville Beach at 7:15 a.m. The storm produced a record-breaking rainfall for 2 days, some places recording more than 30 inches of rain. Record flooding developed along the Cape Fear, Northeast Cape Fear, Lumberton, and Waccamaw rivers. Wind gusts exceeded more than 100 miles per hour. The Category 1 hurricane caused 42 fatalities and $24 billion in damage. State health officials are also urging you to get vaccinated against influenza as the state enters flu season while experiencing a COVID surge caused by the Delta variant. The state health director says it's critically important to get both your flu vaccine and your COVID-19 vaccine. The CDC recommends flu vaccinations for everyone 6 months and older. Flu infections are the most common from late fall to early spring, with activity usually peaking in January or February. And more good news for UNCW. It's one of 3 UNC schools ranked among the top 100 public national universities by U.S. News and World Report. This is the third year that UNCW has made the top 100 best national public universities list. UNCW tied with Oklahoma State University and the University of Louisville for 96th place. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, we are looking pretty good for just one more day today. We're expecting a carbon copy of yesterday's weather with temperatures getting back up into the upper 80s, low 90s inland of the coast. And along the immediate coastline, we're going to get into the middle 80s with a good deal of sunshine. And the humidity certainly going to slowly but surely start to increase over the course of the afternoon hours. But tonight, our temperatures are going to be dropping down into the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Attorney Thom Goolsby joins us every Tuesday inside this second hour block. Former state senator, a member of the UNC Board of Governors. Thom, I hope all is well on your end. Good morning, sir.
It is, Joe. I'm getting ready to tomorrow we start our every 6-week Board of Governors meeting. Tomorrow's committee meetings. And then on Thursday is our full board meeting where we'll deal with all the university systems agenda. For people who don't quite understand what the UNC Board of Governors is, it's the governing board for all 17 campuses that includes our North Carolina School of the Arts, UNC. It's now the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, along with the high school that we have. So it's an interesting job. I think I'm going into my 6th year. So I'm in my second 4-year term right now. And it is challenging. And it's a big system with a whole lot of stuff going on, all the way from the coast here at UNCW, all the way up to Western Carolina in Cullowhee, if anybody knows where that is, tucked up in a beautiful spot up in the mountains, but in all points in between, UNC Pembroke, North Carolina A&T, Fayetteville State University. I mean, I can just keep going. It's 16 constituent campuses. So it's a lot of work, but I'd like to say it's rewarding. It's a very difficult time to be on any higher education board with all of the wokeness, with all of the infighting. And, we saw what our friend, God rest his soul, Mike Adams went through for decades, fighting just to have a little bit of conservative talk on campus, how hated, vilified he was. And of course, he ended up committing suicide right before he was going to retire. And he's sorely missed. He was a great voice. In fact, I was going through some books over the weekend and came across one of his books, and just a brilliant writer. He wrote for Town Hall all the time. He had a way with words. He was amazing and sorely missed. I was hanging out with some friends last week who were good friends of his, and we just can't believe he's gone. But again, one voice, one conservative voice in the university system. There are very, very few. It is a hodgepodge of wokeness and political correctness and everything else critical race theory, everything else that you can imagine that is going on there. And I wish we focused more on education. I wish we focused more on, making America great again, getting students out there that are fully trained, ready to go in and do great things, focused on the right things. But I don't see a lot of that as far as where I see the pressure points and where I see the focus. I wish it was more on those types of things. And also, Joe, bringing in all the technology that we have. It is coming. I look at corporations like Starbucks. If you work at Starbucks for 6 months, Schultz, the president of Starbucks years ago, signed a deal with Arizona State University Online. After you work for Starbucks for 6 months, you can go to ASU Online, get your degree for free. And I think you're going to be seeing more and more corporations looking to hire, from the inside. I mean, what better for someone to prove themselves to you than working for your company, going to school, getting a degree, and then going into management and being able to move up in your firm? I mean, what better than that? I think it's a brilliant move. I think you'll see more of it. There are lots of alternatives for parents who are out there that are looking for ways to save on college. We've got early college all around us, both in New Hanover County. You've got those types of offerings, and in Brunswick County, where kids spend their last 2 years taking college courses. You've got the Isaac Baer School there on the UNCW campus. We've got, you've got the ability to go to the junior college for free, the community college for free, knock out 2 years. I knew a young man, his father was incarcerated at the time. Family didn't have a lot of funds. He went for free to the community college, knocked out his first 2 years, got then a scholarship to go to UNC, went there for free, graduated, no debt, no problems, moved right ahead. My plan for my girls, I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, and we're talking about it this weekend, is to do an early college type thing. So when they graduate from high school, they literally go to college as a rising junior. And we're talking about saving money. That is an incredible way to do it. It's available to any student out there right now. If you don't know about it, call up the guidance counselor at your high school for your kid and figure it out. There are things that you can do, that you should do. And, I mean, imagine your child graduating from college 2 years early. What kind of savings would that be for you? And again, if you're out there listening and you can't afford to go to school, you have the Western Governors University. The Board of Governors, I was on the committee that approves the new programs. And we approved the Western Governors University a couple of years ago. I think it's around $3,000 a semester. You can take pretty much as many courses as you want. Testing centers are around North Carolina. It was started by Utah Governor Mike Leavitt, I think back in the 90s. It's accredited. It's amazing. It's cheap. You can knock your degree out there. Like I said, Arizona State University online. Get a job at Starbucks. Go to school for free. I mean, Joe, there is no reason for people not to get educated, for parents not to be empowered. You know, you can pull the plug on the people that aren't doing the right things. You don't have to feed the beast that is going to consume you. You can stand up and you can use your feet to vote. And that is exactly what folks ought to be doing. You know, when you're paying the bill, you have a right to complain as parents. You have a right to stand up and be heard. And again, that's what we have elected officials for. That's what we have people like me on the Board of Governors for. You know, people have a right to stand up. I am impressed with our new president, Peter Hans. He's been a strong conservative for many years. He is taking the reins of a very difficult dragon to try to control, and I think he's making a lot of moves in the right direction. I'm happy to be serving on the board at this critical time, but it is very, very tough, very challenging, and we've got to get our university system going in the right direction.
Attorney Thom Goolsby with us, just previewing some of the meetings he'll be a part of later this week as his role continues with the UNC Board of Governors, the oversight committee, as it were, for the UNC system. Thom, I can't believe that your daughters are 12 and 14 years old. I remember when they were 2 and 4 years old. That's when I first met you. They were just born.
Yes, absolutely.
14 years old.
And my son in December turns 30. He just finished a degree at MIT and works for Raytheon. Travels all over the world with them. And I can't believe I have a 30-year-old son. Also, Joe, just full disclosure, my 60th birthday is September 11th.
Wow.
That was my 40th birthday for the big one, the big September 11. But yeah, I turned 60 over the weekend. So. Not unheard of. I mean, but 30-year-old and 12 and 14-year-olds, quite a spread there. But they are wonderful, and we have great plans for them. Joe, I would like to talk about Cooper vetoing House Bill 324. Now, of course, you had legislative leaders like Phil Berger, because of course it was originated in the House, but the Senate supported it fully. This is Phil Berger's quote about this veto. It's perplexing that Governor Cooper would veto a bill that affirms the public school system's role to teach students the full truth about our state's sometimes ugly past. His invented excuse is so plainly refuted by the text of the bill that I question whether he even read it. And of course, what did this bill do? Well, it does not permit public schools to compel students to affirm or profess belief in several discriminatory concepts. And here's what the bill says, that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex. Joe, who could possibly disagree with that? That an individual solely by virtue of his or her race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive. Another one, an individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partially because of his or her race or sex. Sounds like the Nuremberg race laws. We're standing against those, but of course, Cooper, he's not going to sign off on anything like that. Here's another one. A meritocracy is inherently racist or sexist. And then the last one, particular character traits, values, moral or ethical codes, privileges, or beliefs should be ascribed to a race or sex or to an individual because of the individual's race or sex. And again, the bill affirms the public school system's mission to accurately teach students about North Carolina's racial past and all of its ugliness, including the cruelties of slavery, the Wilmington riots, and the Jim Crow era. I'll just point out for our Republican friends that if you will recall, you go back in history, Republicans weren't responsible for any of those things. In fact, it was the Republicans in blue uniforms that stopped slavery. It was the Democrats that continued to perpetuate it. It was the Democrat red shirts in Wilmington who were the ones that murdered numerous black people, ran off all of the white and black Republicans, destroyed the printing presses of the newspaper that they did not like, and again, took over Wilmington by force. So in an illegal coup, one of the only in the United States. But of course, if you ask kids if they know any of the history of that, any of the history of the Democrat Party, they of course don't, because they're taught that the Democrats are the good guys and the Republicans are the bad guys. And of course, if you don't learn history, you don't know much of anything about how the world really works. And Joe, I think that's the plan. It's not a hidden plan. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a secret. It is exactly what they do on a daily basis. And of course, I spend a lot of my time when I'm driving the girls around, when we're talking. I do everything I can to explain history, to explain to them that just because you hear something doesn't mean it's true. And that little phone, that little iPad you carry around, because when they ask me questions, we look things up. And we say, wow, it's so easy to get answers to things if you know the right place to look, and if you ask the right people and go to the right sources, because you do have to source things, to figure stuff out. There's no reason not to know the truth. And there's no reason not to challenge your teachers. There's no reason not to push back. My girls know that if you're sitting there and you hear something that doesn't make sense, you start asking questions like Daddy does in court. You cross-examine people. You find out why they're saying what they're saying, what they're basing that on. You know, I encourage them to push back on their teachers, on any adult that tells them anything. And if all else fails and you feel threatened or you feel under siege, you get hold of me and I will fix it. And that is what any good parent ought to be relaying to their children as often as you can. If you care about what is going on and how their minds are being molded when you're not around.
Thom, I'm not sure, when it comes to challenging and asking questions and presenting, counter arguments. And I guess I was fortunate because in the schooling and places where I attended, that was always sort of the mindset. And that was, the way in which I was brought up by, my two parents inside the home and many others associated with my upbringing, was that if it sounds good and too good, it probably is, and you should start to ask some questions. If the group is going that way, you may want to linger behind for a little while to see, which bridge they may jump off of before you join them. Why are some of these, basic concepts that we grew up with, why is that just so in distant land today from what we see, in the classroom, inside the home? Just basic, fundamental, foundational sort of things that were kind of common knowledge many years ago, not so common these days.
Well, Joe, I believe it's because this wokeism has made its way through, our university systems, out into the education departments and onto the teachers. And the way I believe we're going to fix this problem, and I think my fellow Republicans have been approaching it the wrong way all this time.
They keep pumping more money into the public university system. They keep offering more and more pay for the public university. Public school, not university, public school system, for public school teachers. They keep, infrastructure, all this. That's all great and well and good. But when you look at what, and I'm so fascinated to see how the experiment works out in West Virginia. West Virginia has gone to a total voucher system. Parents get a check. They will be getting a check every year for their child to spend as they see fit, whether it is in a government-run school, a non-government-run public school like a charter school, parochial school, a private school, a gathering of students to be taught by an individual, home school. Joe, we all know that the persons who care the most about the students are the parents. Oh yeah, there's occasionally a bad parent that doesn't. We can deal with that. But in large part, 90+%, parents care about their kids. And who better to care about your kid and to make the decisions about where to spend the money that the state's spending anyway than the parents? What is more empowering? Now, I can hear the public school administrators and the educrats screaming, we can't do that. Well, you don't want us to do that, because if we do that, you lose your power, you lose your hold. But the people who ought to be empowered are parents and students. We ought to be giving the money to the parents, allowing them to make the decisions. But what if they spend it on drugs? There's plenty of ways to make sure that the money in a trust is spent as the parent directs on the appropriate school. Plenty of ways to handle that. And just to stop all this madness, once you empower parents to make the decisions about their kids, they're going to make the right decisions. 9 times out of 10, so much better than some technocrat, bureaucrat, educrat. That's the way to do it. I'm going to be watching very closely what happens in West Virginia, and over the coming years, we should all push hard, hard, hard. I'm looking forward to seeing somebody like Mark Robinson, our current lieutenant governor, become governor of this state with large Republican majorities, hopefully starting all over again in this next election cycle. And then we see Mark Robinson take over in 2024. And then, Joe, we might actually have a chance to totally reform education, to set up a voucher system in our state so that we're then able to turn education over to the appropriate authorities, empower parents, and see to it that our kids get back on the right track. And once we get government out of the way, the free market, parents making decisions appropriate for their children, it will be, and all the technology that's coming online with the artificial intelligence and the virtual learning, coupled with classrooms, teachers who are motivated, parents who are making the right decisions for their kids. So that'll be the new age of education. And I hope that'll sweep the whole country, and I hope North Carolina will pick that ball up and be one of the first like West Virginia.
Well, there's no doubt, there is an appetite for it, as you can see across the entire country, whether it be these public school board meetings that are packed to capacity for one reason or the other, or here in North Carolina, one of the leaders when it comes to parents decided that they're going to homeschool their kids, and the various different curriculums that are now offered through virtual learning and other sorts of educational options out there. As there are many things that we can be upset about, or that take us into and down a path that is more towards a pessimistic outlook as far as where the country is headed. There's no doubt this educational conversation and to the schooling of our children, particularly given the numbers. It says it all. Particularly the approach that many are taking within the broken system. This may be one of the issues where we start to see the tide turning, or we have seen the tide turning, in North Carolina and in many other states like it.
And Joe, truly, the only answer is total reform. And total reform is vouchers for all. That empowers the parents. That disempowers the government-run bureaucracy. it wipes them out in one bill. It completely, then they get to compete for kids. Then they get a level playing field, and they are held responsible. And as far as going to these school board meetings, and think about that, Joe, going to a school board meeting, begging politicians to do the right thing, as opposed to having the money yourself and being able to direct it and being able to say, you know what, school board, you need to do what's right. And if you don't, our kids are leaving. And it doesn't mean they're leaving and you get to keep the money. It means we are taking the money, and you can sit around here all you want, make all the decisions you want for a system that, is gone. And that disempowers these people. It puts their butts in a sling to make the right decisions for the right reasons. And it empowers the parents. It empowers the voters. It empowers the kids. It empowers everybody. Why wouldn't we have a system like that? Why would we turn that over to let a bunch of hacks decide what happens to your kids instead of you? Instead of you being able to say, hey, I'm pulling my kid out. That money's coming with me. That money's coming with us, and it's going to go over to a private school. It's going to go to a charter school we're forming. It's going to go to Wilmington Christian Academy. It's going to go to Cape Fear. It's got wherever it might be. That, my friends, is where the real power is, and that is what the education bureaucracy just literally shakes in the dark about. When you figure that out and you demand that from your legislators, and they pass that bill and they push it through and the governor signs it into law, they're done. They're done. They're wrapped up in a package. They are done. Parents are empowered. The money goes with the students, and it's over, and education starts again.
Hey, Thom, before I let you go, we just have about a minute or so. I was looking at the North Carolina workforce website today, and it shows that there are about 80,000 more jobs listed right now in North Carolina than there are people applying for them. Supposedly, we're trying to get the economy back up and running and getting people back into the workforce. But Democrats, to no surprise, within our General Assembly up in Raleigh, have launched a new push to extend and increase the amount of money paid out in unemployment benefits. Didn't we just have this, battle with the governor over the last several months trying to opt out of the federal program? And now we've got Democrats here in the state looking to get us back into a same sort of situation here where we're just, providing extra benefits for, our workforce to remain on the sidelines. How does that help us, moving forward?
It doesn't, Joe. Ask any restaurant owner. I traveled to the western part of the state a couple of weeks ago, and I had to go sort of pop down to South Carolina and then back up to the Asheville area. When I went over to South Carolina, went into a restaurant, the staff were falling all over themselves. Governor McManus refused to take that federal money, and there were people working everywhere. There was no shortage of employees. Folks were working, fully staffed. The restaurants were open. It was amazing. And, of course, if you pay people not to work, what do you think they'll do? That's pretty simple. Pretty simple equation. Democrats don't care about that. It's all about giving out, making sure you know who's giving you the goodies, so you'll vote for them. It's old-fashioned vote buying. That's the way they've always done it, Joe. That's the way crooks always do it, always have done it, and always will do it. They're a bunch of crooks.
Thom, thanks as always for the time, and I look forward to following up here in the weeks ahead surrounding the UNC Board of Governors discussions that you'll be a part of this week. It's a very important issue given the rise in cost of college education, what you're getting for your degree, and you play a big role on that board. And I know you love to stir the pot, given the fact that there are not many like-minded folks sitting alongside you as part of that group that you're with. Look forward to the update next week.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Joe.
All right, we're approaching the top of the hour here on the Big Talker FM. We'll turn the conversation over to some national news when we get back. We'll highlight yesterday's committee hearing with our Secretary of State, who looked, unwilling and unwanting to answer the questions and decided to play the blame game on a lot of the the pushback he received by members of Congress, particularly from the Republican side. We'll talk with Alex Noli of the Republican National Committee next.
Keeping Oak Island informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
President Biden.
He inherited an agreement that his predecessor had reached with the Taliban.
Yesterday's appearance before the House Foreign Affairs Committee was virtual. Today, Blinken may show up in person to testify before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Republican Larry Elder urging supporters to cast their ballots in today's recall election. It could see Democrat Gavin Newsom removed from office and Elder elected California's first black governor. At a Newsom rally south of Los Angeles, President Biden cast Elder as a clone of former President Trump. The storm called Nicholas roared ashore just south of Freeport, Texas, around 2 o'clock this morning.
Before it made landfall, it abruptly intensified into a hurricane. And then as it moved inland, the pressures have begun to rise with it. The winds have relaxed slightly. And now we're getting down into tropical storm force. And those winds are probably very likely to continue throughout much of the morning as it slowly weakens.
And Kent Prohaska at the National Weather Service, there is a serious threat of flash flooding. The storm dumps have very heavy rain along the coast. Louisiana is really getting slammed, including areas that are still recovering from Hurricane Ida. Parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle could also feel the impact of this latest storm in the coming days. Watching Wall Street, Dow futures up 124 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Right now, people are home with their pets more often, and I think especially with the shedding, they're more cognizant of what's going on and that it's an actual issue.
Nala's got some skin issues. He gets really going and scratching.
Excessive shedding, a lot of just scratching and itching.
Jigging, scratching and itching and biting. On top of that, he was starting to get black buildup in his ears.
DINOVITE.com.
I just heard the Dynovite commercial so many times that I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And I ordered it and tried it, and it worked.
We started Dynovite, and in our first box, we noticed a difference, especially with the shedding.
Within 3 weeks, he's not scratching and itching, and he's an all-around happier dog.
We've got 4 dogs, all different ages, all different sizes, and they've all just responded really well to the Dynovite, and they all love it.
We will be using Dynovite for life.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
We order our Dynovite from Dynovite.com.
DINOVITE.com.
The Kremlin says Russian President Putin is going into self-isolation because of coronavirus cases among his inner circle.
Putin has been fully vaccinated with the Russian coronavirus vaccine Sputnik 5. Now spokesman Dmitry Peskov tells reporters Putin is absolutely healthy but will self-isolate after coming in contact with someone who contracted the virus. He didn't clarify for how long Putin would remain in self-isolation, but assured that the president will continue working as usual. On Monday, Putin met with Syria's Bashar Assad to discuss the cooperation between their armies and how to continue operations to gain control of the last rebel-held areas in Syria. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Spain's government cutting energy taxes, part of a plan aimed at driving down skyrocketing household electricity costs. News and analysis at townhall.com. North Korea has successfully tested newly developed long-range cruise missiles.
The tests underscore how the dictatorship continues to expand its military capabilities amid a stalemate in nuclear negotiations with the United States. The North hailed its new missiles as a strategic weapon of great significance. That wording implies they were developed with the intent to arm them with nuclear warheads. North Korea says it needs nuclear weapons in order to deter what it claims is hostility from the U.S. and South Korea. The international community is bent on getting the North to abandon its nuclear arsenal, but U.S.-led negotiations have stalled. Keith Peters reporting.
An expert advisory panel has recommended the UK government offer a third dose of COVID-19 vaccine to everyone over the age of 50. This as Prime Minister Boris Johnson prepares to announce the government's new plan for fighting the pandemic. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Heading into our final hour of the program here on this Tuesday morning. It's the 14th of September, 2021. Great to be with you as always here on the Big Talker FM at bigtalkerfm.com. Of course, video portion of the program available by subscribing to our YouTube channel or logging on to our Facebook page, Big Talker 1067 FM. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. We can also keep the conversation going through social media, whether that be through direct messaging or the conversation that many of our listeners engage in day-to-day on the video chat that we have up and running here this morning on our feed. Alex Nolly's with the Republican National Committee, and she joins us here this morning to comment on yesterday's committee hearing involving our Secretary of State, who is being questioned on the withdrawal of Afghanistan and other issues related to the 20-year war that has come to an end with, now the United Nations telling us that the Taliban somehow, some way, who would have thought, now breaking their promises that they made about their treatment of women and house-to-house searches is coming, nearly a month after the insurgent group toppled the Afghan government and seized power in the country. Charter flights not being allowed to leave Afghanistan. Secretary of State apparently said yesterday, we were given the withdrawal from the Trump administration, but no plan to go with it. Didn't know that was the outgoing administration's responsibility. As we saw the mess play out over the last couple of weeks in the war-torn country. Alex, it's a pleasure. I hope all is well. I know you took some time off last week. I hope you enjoyed it, rested, and ready to roll here this morning. I hope all is well. Good morning.
Hey, Joe. Good morning. Yes, took some time off, and I'm back at it. Really excited to be on with you today. As you talked about yesterday and today, Secretary Blinken is going to be testifying before Congress on Biden administration's botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. And I, for one, am really excited to see how he's going to try to justify his actions. He's lied to us, he's been irresponsible, and he's left American people hostage in Afghanistan. So I'm curious. Yesterday, he just continued to peddle lies, and I expect today to be more of the same.
Alex, when we talk, and frankly, yesterday, we live at the beach. I had a couple of hours instead of being hunkered in, at home, listening to 5 hours of the Secretary of State place the blame game. I was at the beach with my family and my daughter, and I wasn't interested. So, give us the lowdown on all of this when it comes down to, what really went into some of these decisions. It seemed like it was rushed, it was botched, and I know when you pull the Band-Aid off, it's not going to be pretty. And we knew that this needed to come to some sort of end in one way, shape, or form. I think a lot of people agree with that. It's the way it kind of played out that I think left a bad taste in the mouths of many, including those who have spent time serving our country in that region of the world for the better part of the last 20 years.
I totally agree. I think one of the main issues here is that he sold us a bag of false goods. He said that there was going to be a responsible end to Afghanistan, that our troops would be removed from harm's way. Okay, we know that's not true. In August, 13 American service members were killed by a suicide bomber in an act of terror. In April, he reassured our allies in Afghanistan of America's commitment. He said, we have a commitment, especially to those who worked with us, who helped us. But as soon as we withdrew from Afghanistan, our allies continued to slam the Biden administration. We left thousands of Afghans who put their lives on the line to assist the United States. We left them in Afghanistan. And we gave the Taliban essentially a kill list of names of U.S. citizens and our allies. So that's two things right there that he completely lied about. He told us one thing and then he did another. But, as we've talked about before when I've been on your show, that's par for the course for the Biden administration. They say one thing, they do another, and we cannot count on them at all, to do what they set out to do. Even last week, Blinken said that he wasn't aware of any hostage situation in Afghanistan, but the very next day, he admitted that Americans were being held hostage. So this is completely irresponsible, and he needs to be held accountable. And I hope our members of Congress do their job and really hold Blinken and the entire Biden administration accountable for this botched withdrawal.
And with that said, they're quickly running for cover and trying to sweep this under the rug, and then put attention on all the other issues with the president. On the West Coast yesterday, it was climate change, and now it's the vaccination mandates. This administration has been pretty good at pulling the blanket over us in that, they immediately divert attention from the next botched sort of policy or proposal or issue that seems to be getting out of control, and they immediately divert the public's attention. The media goes along with it to the next thing that they're trying to address. It seems as if they're just all about pushing their agenda at all costs, and everything else just seems to be sort of a blur to this administration at this point.
You're absolutely right. It reminds me of like that game you played as a little kid where someone would take one hand and wave and try to distract you over here while behind their back they were doing something else. And that's what the Biden administration is doing. They're having Olivia Rodrigo and random pop stars come to the White House and talk about COVID when American troops and allies are being killed in Afghanistan. And so they just don't want to talk about it. And I really do think it's our job at the RNC. It's your job to your listeners. If you are a Republican, or if you're not a Republican and you're just upset by this complete botched withdrawal, which you should be, you need to go out and be telling your friends about it, because the thing that they want us to do is to forget about it. But we have to keep this momentum rolling, especially into the midterms of 2022, and make sure that everybody knows that the blood of these American service members is on the Biden administration. Everything that has happened in Afghanistan is on and is the responsibility of Secretary Blinken and the Biden administration. And we have to hammer that home from now until the end of time, really, because, it's just completely unacceptable.
We're 14 minutes past the hour. Alex Nolly is with us from the Republican National Committee. When we look at, as this year is off as far as some of the federal elections go and the eyes turning to 2022, we've got a couple of big races that'll be going on here. We've got the legislative maps that are going to be drawn and put out as North Carolina gains another congressional district. When we look at the state of North Carolina, how do you see this sort of shaking out when it comes to the campaign season ramping up and the ability to keep majorities and ultimately, keep the Senate seat with Richard Burr, retiring at the end of his term with three sort of well-known Republican candidates in the Senate race, and then a candidate on the Democrat side that seems to be leading the polls right now, extremely early, of course, but one that brings some experience on the state's highest court with her to this race and debate that we'll be having as far as which way North Carolina will go as far as the senatorial campaign goes. How are things building here within the GOP to make sure North Carolina maintains the congressional delegation along with this Senate seat that'll be up for grabs and will gain a lot of national attention?
Well, Joe, I think we are going to be very successful come November 2022. We've already got tons of boots on the ground in North Carolina, ramping up our voter registration efforts. And I know that the North Carolinians are so upset with what they're seeing in the Biden administration. And the number one thing that they want is somebody in Congress who's going to be a check on this ridiculous, irresponsible administration. So I know that we are going to have a Republican senator, and I'm excited to see who comes out of the primary. The Republican Party will be happy to support whoever that candidate is. And then as far as Sherry Beasley, I know that's who you were talking about. I think it's a complete mess on the Democrat side. There's so much infighting. They can't stop pointing fingers at each other. And all three candidates have been relatively silent about this botched withdrawal in Afghanistan, which is absolutely ridiculous. If they want to go into Congress and represent North Carolinians, especially when you think about Fort Bragg and Camp Lejeune, I mean, the 82nd Airborne, which is in Fayetteville, was one of the first people to get sent over during all of this withdrawal mess. And nobody, not a single one of our three Senate candidates on the Democratic side said anything. So I think that North Carolinians are going to be ready to elect a Republican. And as I said before, I'm excited to see who that candidate will be on our side.
Alex, as always, thanks so much for the time and working with us every Tuesday to make sure we've got someone from the RNC to speak with us on the many different national issues that are highlighted throughout the news cycle. Again, look forward to our conversation next week and in the weeks ahead.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Joe.
That's Alex Nolly with the Republican National Committee, sharing some thoughts, of course, on yesterday's hearing with the Secretary of State, Secretary Blinken. He'll be pressed by those in the Senate today on the situation in Afghanistan. What we learned, from Monday's 5-hour hearing, the UN telling us that the Taliban, this is the President of the United States, the Taliban, breaking promises it made about its treatment of women and house-to-house searches.
You want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Charter flights not being allowed to leave Afghanistan. Yeah, a couple of hundred Americans, but also many others, including green card holders and Afghans who fought alongside us for the better part of 20 years, stuck, chartered flights not being allowed to leave. Pointing the finger at the previous administration, saying, they gave us the withdrawal timeline, but they didn't give us a plan. And then when asked about details on the supposed drone attack that spoiled a terrorist plot to kill more people in Kabul as the withdrawal continued, we can't really provide details on that. Well, Secretary, how are we investigating this if, in fact, we have no boots on the ground? Well, I don't want to get in front of those who are responsible for looking into it, but we can't provide any details on it. And apparently now we're getting ready to send another $65 million in humanitarian aid to Afghanistan that I'm sure will be spent in the best way possible. 19 minutes past the hour. Your calls between now and the bottom of the hour before Angela Morabito joins us from Campus Reform. She's going to give us 2 or 3 eye-opening stories that she has discovered within our college campuses across the country. And we'll also highlight, some of the ridiculousness that we continue to see from, the flagship campus of our UNC system up in Chapel Hill. We'll talk with Angela here in about 15 minutes.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once?
How far would you go if you had a group of strong, amazing people who support, motivate, and inspire one another to achieve their fitness goals and dreams? At Full Circle Fitness, we aren't just a place to work out. We're a community of amazing people who work together to reclaim our bodies and do things we thought we'd never be able to do again. Ready to set your fears aside and stop making excuses? Call today, Full Circle Fitness, 910-399-8350, or visit FullCircleFitnessNC.com.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
In this corner, bugs. Every creepy, crawly pest that lurks in your home. And in this corner, bug-no pest and termite control.
That's Mr. Bug-no to you, pal.
If you have unwanted pests, let Bug-No Pest and Termite Control take the fight to them. Bug-No Pest and Termite Control is a family-owned and operated business, fully licensed and insured, and can handle all of your residential and commercial pest and termite control needs. Rated 5 stars on Angie's List and HomeAdvisor.com. Call 910-367-2501 to give bugs a knockout.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey folks, here's a story about Minnie the Moocher. She was a low-down hoochie coocher. She was the roughest, toughest frail, but Minnie had a heart as big as a whale. Honey, 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 hi.
23 minutes past the hour this morning. Want to give a big tip of the cap to my teammates over at Quality Exteriors. Our fall season of the Old Man Softball Beer League began last night. 18-3 winners. I won't bring up our opponent's name. A little embarrassing for them this morning. 3 for 3 last night, by the way. And we had big disappointment this past spring, so we're looking to turn it around. Calm, cool, collected like we've been there before yesterday, kid. Boy, oh boy. Great chance yesterday to head out to the beach, and what beautiful weather we've been having across the area over the last several days. And I'm looking out in the ocean. I'm like, boy, 3 years ago, we were in a completely different situation. In fact, 3 years to the day. I know many of you were contemplating, do we pick up and head out, or do we stay through Hurricane Florence? And for myself, having lived here now for 16 years, that was really the first time I had to deal with the ramifications of this weather-related event. I know last year down in Brunswick County, dealing with Oak Island, Southport, got hit by that storm that kind of crept up on us and sort of came out of nowhere and created some impacts down in that area of our region. But Florence, of course, was a 5-county eastern part of North Carolina sort of event that created all sorts of havoc, and that was 3 years ago to the day. Oof. Hammered us. And that slow-moving storm that just seemed to never go away with all the rain and the floodwater and all sorts of other things that we learned about in the aftermath. Some of the workers with Cape Fear Public Utility Authority that were leveraging a broken pipe over on Highway 421. That if that thing broke, access to water, counties inland would have been extremely limited and scarce, and would have created another whole different emergency sort of situation. But we remained vigilant, and we've got back on our feet for the most part. And we need to continue to remain prepared and aware of what's going on, in the tropics this time of year. Storm made landfall in Texas this morning. We've got this little disturbance off of our coastline right now that should stay away and not really create any sort of impact. But there are a few other things that weather folks are keeping an eye on coming off the coast of Africa. So, now a good a time as any to remind us 3 years ago to the day of how important it is to make sure you've got that preparedness plan in place and everything else sorted out in the event you have to leave or in the event that you decide to stay. Locally, we highlighted it in the first hour. Still some fallout from this video recording that was posted last week starring the employees at New Hanover Regional Medical Center. In fact, I was at the beach yesterday and got a note from one of their people at the hospital asking if I was interested in getting some more background on what they were discussing based on the things that they heard, us talk about on the show. And you're close to the target and hitting the nail on the head because over the past several weeks on this program, we've discussed a number of local topics and stories, and within days, I received contact from people who have been involved in the stories that we discuss. First, it was George Taylor and True Colors Brewing. Now the hospital offering themselves to answer any questions that we may have. They don't want to speak publicly other than what Novant Health. Of course, when you're dealing with the corporate world now, they have to cross their T's and dot their I's. They gave a blanket statement on what was leaked and no sort of responsibility taken for some of the ridiculous comments that we heard from apparently a medical professional and a doctor. And basically pointed the finger at people like me and many who tune in for spreading supposed misinformation across our community. So I'm not really sure if I have any questions for them when you have a medical doctor, a supposed professional who behind the scenes will make comments the way she did. And I got to say, if I ever go to a doctor's office and someone like that walks into the room, I'm hightailing it out of there 0 to 60 in 1.3 seconds. Get me the hell out of the way of anyone who has an approach to medicine with those sorts of thoughts being thrown out during a meeting, whether it be internally or publicly. No thanks. I'm good. That's why we go seek medical professionals that give it to us straight, who we may agree with and we may disagree with, but they give us the whole story. And that's been the missing piece in all of this. The whole story has not been told to us in a fully open and transparent way from the get-go, which is why there's doubt, hesitation, and uncertainty within the general public 2 years into this mess. In fact, I was talking with someone last night. She had serious implications and symptoms from COVID and just got over it, just getting back to work. And she said initially, this is one story and take it for what it is, but I have no reason not to believe her. I've known her for 10 years. I don't know why she would be blowing smoke up my rear end. But she says, listen, felt sick, a little under the weather, felt like I had sort of a sinus infection. I've had sinus infections before. So I asked the doctor, prescribe me something for the sinus infection. What do you typically give me? Let's get the antibiotic in there. And, no, we're going to give you a COVID test. And then she apparently tested positive. The doctor unwilling to prescribe the medication that she felt would be best suited for her, given what she was feeling. Sinus cavity, stonked up, Why not? And then it got to the point where she started to feel worse and worse and worse. Her parents live up in Virginia. Her mom comes down, having real trouble breathing and dealing with some of the symptoms. And they were thinking about bringing her to the hospital. And her mom's like, we're not going to the hospital. We'll figure it out here. And they did that. Now, that's not to say it works for everybody, and not to say that you shouldn't go to the emergency room if you are to the point where you feel like you can't make it. But I think the larger question here remains, why are doctors hesitant to prescribe therapeutics and other medications and antibiotics early on? Why is it that every other illness, sickness, viral infection, why is it that with COVID, why aren't we doing what we've done for patients for every other virus that we've ever dealt with when it comes to early treatment and other efforts to help mitigate symptoms? Why is it? Why is it that we're not researching and studying the millions of people who have had COVID to learn about their natural immunity, how long the antibodies last? We've got millions of test subjects out there, yet I haven't been called up for any sort of study to look into it. And you haven't either. But get the jab, put your mask on, stay in the corner, and do as you're told. It just doesn't add up, particularly when you've got medical professionals sharing their thoughts behind closed doors like this.
Maybe we need to be completely a little bit more scary. We have to say something coming out, you don't get vaccinated, you're going to die.
Yeah, well, when you have people sharing thoughts like that, not really sure I can trust medical advice with a mindset like that, no matter what you saw and how much of a struggle you've been facing at our hospital and any other hospital or taxing situation that doctors and nurses and medical workers have had to deal with. You say something like that, not really going to settle well with me and, many others who caught wind of that video late last week. And in a response, you get some type of canned statement about people like you and me supposedly spreading disinformation.
Somewhere in a lonely hotel room, then the guy started to realize that eternal fate has turned its back on him. It's 2 a.m. It's 2 a.m. The fear is gone. Here we are. The guard's still warm.
Yeah, there's a storm on the loose. Sirens in my head. Wrapped up in silence, all circuits are dead. Can I decode? My whole life spins into a frenzy.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWAY News. The National Hurricane Center in Miami says Hurricane Nicholas has made landfall along the Texas coast, bringing the threat of up to 20 inches of rainfall to parts of the Gulf Coast. The Hurricane Center says the storm touched down with maximum winds of 75 miles per hour. Nicholas was the 14th named storm of the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says authorities have placed rescue teams and resources in the Houston area and along the coast. Storm-battered Louisiana was also expected to see heavy rain and flooding from Nicholas. Today also marks the third anniversary of when Hurricane Florence arrived in the Cape Fear. The eye of the hurricane crossed Wrightsville Beach at 7:15 a.m. The storm produced a record-breaking rainfall for 2 days, some places recording more than 30 inches of rain. Record flooding developed along the Cape Fear, Northeast Cape Fear, Lumberton, and Waccamaw rivers. Wind gusts exceeded more than 100 miles per hour. The Category 1 hurricane caused 42 fatalities and $24 billion in damage. State health officials are also urging you to get vaccinated against influenza as the state enters flu season while experiencing a COVID surge caused by the Delta variant. The state health director says it's critically important to get both your flu vaccine and your COVID-19 vaccine. The CDC recommends flu vaccinations for everyone 6 months and older. Flu infections are the most common from late fall to early spring, with activity usually peaking in January or February. And more good news for UNCW. It's one of 3 UNC schools ranked among the top 100 public national universities by U.S. News and World Report. This is the 3rd year that UNCW has made the top 100 best national public universities list. UNCW tied with Oklahoma State University and the University of Louisville for 96th place. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. Well, we are looking pretty good for just one more day today. We're expecting a carbon copy of yesterday's weather with temperatures getting back up into the upper 80s, low 90s inland of the coast. And along the immediate coastline, we're going to get into the middle 80s with a good deal of sunshine. And the humidity certainly going to slowly but surely start to increase over the course of the afternoon hours. But tonight, our temperatures are going to be dropping down into the low to middle 70s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
All right, over the last couple of days, we've talked about a story that comes from our flagship campus within the UNC system, the campus on the Hill, and some of the ridiculous that we have seen play out at UNC Chapel Hill, whether it be the ridiculously high-paid administrative state on their campus, all the way down to, low-level courses that are being offered. A lot of attention was brought to UNC earlier this year when the investigative, quote-unquote, award-winning journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones made a mockery of the campus and turned down a ridiculous offer to serve as a professor up in Chapel Hill. One of the more popular news outlets these days exposing the rot on our college campuses and universities is a website, an organization known as Campus Reform at campusreform.org. Angela Morabito is the reporter at Campus Reform that highlighted the course that we will talk about here this morning up in Chapel Hill, known as Global Whiteness. Enlightenment versus Enlightenment, the study of interracial hookups on campus. Let's throw in Trump for a presentation here and there on the white supremacist that he is. This is what you're paying $35,000, $40,000 a semester for, folks, and taking massive amounts of loan money out to get your kids an education up in Chapel Hill. Angela, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us here this morning.
Joe, thanks for having me.
So, it started with the 1619 Project, Nicole Hannah-Jones, and the drama that surrounded her lucrative six-figure deal to teach a class maybe, twice a week, and then she turns it down. It gets national news. She goes on CBS. Look at me, plays the victim card. What are you finding out about our campus on the Hill at UNC as far as why people maybe should be hesitant to enroll their children up in Tar Heel country?
Well, when we talk about UNC, this is your tax dollars at work. And Campus Reform has uncovered some really interesting documents that show the inner workings of the journalism school. When this Nicole Hannah-Jones tenure fight was going on, the dean of the journalism school, who since stepped down, her name is Susan King, she emailed ABC News and asked them, for favorable coverage. She said, protect Nicole, and talked about how much they wanted her to come to the school. That's interesting, right? Because, look, I used to work for the Department of Education. I was their press secretary. And the concept of emailing someone and saying, hey, protect this person, just isn't something you do. That's not the role of the media. And if anybody should know that, it's the dean of a journalism school.
And to think, that Nicole Hannah-Jones could have been one that was making an impression on the young minds of young adults who are seeking maybe a career in providing objective news to the public, not necessarily the foundation that you want if you're going to be a reporter, of course, who tells it to you straight with no sort of slant or agenda accompanied with it.
That's right. The 1619 Project has some serious errors in it, to the point where there are other scholars, other historians from across the country who have come together and said, hey, why did this win a Pulitzer? There are glaring errors in it that, Nicole Hannah-Jones and the New York Times were not honest about. So holding this up as something that is, a truthful work of journalism just is not accurate.
Angela, so, okay, this storm kind of blows over, and I know many who are very proud of, their status as a Chapel Hill alum. They said, all right, well, I can keep my diploma on the wall for a little longer because we were able to, keep a very controversial figure out of our journalism school. But that's not to say woke level 9,000 isn't still very existent on that campus in Chapel Hill, as you recently came across a fall 2021 syllabus on a course offered up in UNC known as Global Whiteness. Explain what Global Whiteness is and what you'd be learning in this course if you happen to find it as an elective, during your time up in Chapel Hill.
This course goes in a few different directions, and each one is crazier than the next. The course syllabus, the course description seems to blame the United States for World War II in the Pacific, said it was Japan's attempt to roll back Western imperialism and colonialism, which that is historically inaccurate. So let's start there. Then take a look at what students are going to be presenting on as part of their grade. One of the presentation topics is, how is Trump racist? They're not asking, what has the former president done? They're not asking, evaluate the president on his merits. They're saying, how is he racist? And more of these presentation topics actually ask students to get up in front of their classmates and present about interracial hookup culture. Now, if you're paying top dollar to go get a college education, I would hope you're learning something bigger and more significant than your classmates' romantic lives. I feel like that's not something that belongs in front of a class, right? So what we believe in academic freedom. People should have the freedom to teach what they want, how they want it. We also believe in academic transparency. And if you're a North Carolina taxpayer, or you're going to school, you're sending a child to this school, this is what your money is going towards.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is go out on a Thursday night, maybe to Frat Row or some of the sorority houses, and you can get all the insight you need to know about different sorts of, hookups on campus. No need to, hash this out in front of your peers in a class, a course. What has the professor said since, some of this news, got into the cycle and that you kind of exposed this syllabus for what it is, trash, frankly?
So we reached out to the professor and didn't hear back, but what we can tell from his syllabus is that, he has a pretty strong free speech statement in there, but it says, we have to pledge to each other respect for each other's views. That's great. And then he continues, and the willingness to tell each other when a comment or incident makes us uncomfortable. So speech that keeps people comfortable is a pretty big part of this course. Pretty ironic considering that it is full of, things that are pretty much designed to offend. But because they're designed to offend one half of the political spectrum, seems to get a pass.
I mean, I was once brought up, even in my education at the colleges that I attended was once brought up even from some of the most leftist professors. Was always encouraged to bring diversity of thought, to challenge what you hear, and to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable if you're going to engage in debate on controversial issues facing our society. That is the best way to move forward. We've come a long way since, my days in college, which wasn't too long ago, as to what's being taught at these quote-unquote prestigious universities across our country.
Yeah, and I think this class is a prime example of something doesn't have to say the words critical race theory to be full of critical race theory. This course syllabus from top to bottom is about dividing people into groups based on race. It's about dividing people into categories of oppressor and oppressed. And that sort of division is all over college campuses. So when you've got university administrators and people like Randy Weingarten, head of the teachers union, standing up and saying, oh, hey, we're not teaching critical race theory, don't buy it. Because just because something doesn't have the CRT label on it doesn't mean it is not full of CRT top to bottom.
Angela Morabito with us from Campus Reform, and you want to find out what's really going on within our universities and college campuses across the country. Their publication does a great job in exposing some of this at campusreform.org. Angela, before we jumped on, I had asked if you could pull maybe two of the most eye-opening stories across the country when it comes to our places of quote-unquote higher learning. What did you dig up for us this morning?
Well, I am absolutely shocked about what is going on at Stanford. There are nearly 200 Stanford faculty members who sent a letter the other day to the Department of Justice asking them to please kindly stop investigating suspected Chinese spies on college campuses. And this is a big problem. Campus Reform has been tracking instances, places like the University of Florida, Harvard, Texas A&M, where China sends researchers ostensibly to help advance knowledge, stuff we want, stuff that we should be bringing people to this country for. But then those researchers hide their connections to the Chinese military and end up taking sensitive information, national security secrets, and intellectual property and sending them straight on over to the Chinese Communist Party. These Stanford faculty members say we shouldn't be investigating that because they say that it is, racial profiling, racial discrimination. Well, that's curious because that is exactly what Chinese state media says. And when we've got an elite institution of higher education saying the exact same thing as the Chinese Communist Party, we've got a huge problem.
Stanford, according to your report, received more than $16 million from Chinese sources over the last 3 or 4 years. So no surprise that money is tied to this at the end of the day.
Right, money talks. And what's more is that Stanford has not historically been as honest as it needed to be about the amount of that money and where it was coming from. When I was at the Department of Ed, the Trump administration investigated underreporting of foreign gifts and contracts. We found that colleges and universities were not following the law that says they have to report major sources of foreign funding to the federal government. They weren't telling the truth. They weren't reporting the money that they had. And Stanford was part of that. They were under investigation. And nationwide, these investigations triggered more than $6 billion in catch-up reporting of money that wasn't reported but was coming from overseas, sometimes from hostile foreign governments, to our institutions of higher ed.
And to tie this all together this morning, one other article that you sent over at campusreform.org involves a congressman that we talk with often. His name is Representative Greg Murphy's with North Carolina's 3rd Congressional District. Got a lot of talk of money here these days up in Washington, the $3.5 trillion budget package that is being hashed out. Congressman Murphy says, well, let's put an amendment in there that ties money delivered to these college campuses to ensure that we are upholding First Amendment rights for the students on those campuses. And Democrats didn't really feel the need that this was an issue that needed to be included in a bill that pretty much includes everything and anything, including the kitchen sink.
That's right. Apparently, this bill has room for everything except college free speech protections. It is astounding what these Democrats are doing. Congressman Murphy's amendment was one sentence. All it said was that if you're going to if you're a college that's going to take money from this bill, you should certify to the Secretary of Education that you're going to protect students' First Amendment rights. This should be a no-brainer, right? But instead, we're seeing Chairman Bobby Scott, who runs the House Ed and Labor Committee. He said, all right, my turn. I'm going to take the floor here. I'm going to talk now. And he goes on this rant and says, there is no problem here. This is an amendment in search of a problem. These universities are already, upholding free speech, which, look, right, I hope that Congressman Scott would check out campus reform, because every day we are reporting on these events where colleges trample on students' First Amendment rights. So it's unfortunate that this common sense amendment didn't make it through. And it's pretty remarkable that nearly 30 Democrats voted against something that is so simple and so obvious.
And with that said, you provided us a couple of those examples this morning going on right within our UNC system up in Chapel Hill on efforts to maybe suppress the ability for students to express their thoughts in a way that won't be detrimental to their educational career. But I guess where it's a solution in search of a problem, says the man in Washington, D.C. Angela, thanks so much.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joe. It's great to join you.
That's Angela Morabito, a higher education fellow and spokesperson over at Campus Reform. A couple of her stories you can find at campusreform.org. Stanford says, the Chinese communists, just leave them alone for a little while. We need that 16 million plus, despite the fact that we continue to see, suspected Chinese agents popping up on campuses all across the country. The DOJ, looking into it under the Trump administration, finds a researcher at UC Davis who hid in the Chinese consulate when she was caught, a Chinese professor at Texas A&M who provided false information to NASA, a professor at Harvard who lied about his China ties while getting grant funding from the National Institute of Health and the Department of Defense, a researcher at Stanford itself who lied about her connections to the Chinese military. But there's nothing to see here, folks. We promise. We're 8 minutes in front of the hour. The phone lines are yours until we head up to 10 o'clock. We thank Angela for stopping by and shedding some light on the ridiculousness going on across our college campuses and universities, our places of higher learning. We'll wrap up the show after this.
As Wilmington's leader in restorative and regenerative medicine, the Frank Institute specializes in health optimization. Simply put, we use in-depth evaluations and lab testing to determine the best treatments for each patient. So whether you're suffering from an unseen hormonal imbalance or a simple vitamin deficiency, the Frank Institute is ready to get you back to better living. Call us at 910-679-8534 or fill out our symptom survey online at frankinstitute.com. Because at the Frank Institute, you live, we help.
Government has become too big, too overtaxing, and is constantly over-regulating every aspect of your life.
If you agree with that, tune in to Consumer Choice Radio every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM with me, Yael Osowski.
And me, David Clement. For an hour, you'll get expert analysis on what the government is sinking its teeth into next and how you, as a consumer, can push back.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
Here, Thom Goolsby on the Joe Catenacci Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because Our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This show is also sponsored by Dr. Tony Maglione. Dr. Tony is a cardiologist practicing in Wilmington. He accepts Medicare patients, and his office is located across the street from New Hanover Regional Medical Center at 2032 17th Street. The office number is 202-1071. Dr. Tony is an author whose last book is Rules for Conservative Patriots, and it can be purchased on Amazon. His website is www.drtonymag.com.
I'm a scat man.
As we look ahead to Wednesday's broadcast, we are expecting senatorial candidate and the former governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory, to join us live in studio during the second hour of our show. Looking forward to catching up with our former governor, of course, seeking your vote in the Republican primary for the U.S. Senate race in 2022. We've been in touch and in contact now with all three of the leading Republican candidates, and we'll do our best over the next several months to get you all of the information you need to know regarding their stance on the issues of the day and what they'd bring to Washington, representing the Tar Heel State. A 6-year term as a U.S. Senator. Pat McCrory in studio with us tomorrow. And there's also a podcast that I've been turned on to from three women who live here locally. And I was introduced to them through our friend Mark Markley with the Recovering Hope show Wednesdays from 6 to 7 p.m. Amy and Kristen Ludwig, and they've got some things going on through their podcast, through other endeavors related to educational option that they're going to talk about tomorrow with us as well. I don't know if you caught the elites last night up in New York City at the Met Gala. There's a lot of attention to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who wore a dress that said "Tax the Rich" on its back. Wearing a Tax the Rich dress to a party that costs $30,000 for a ticket. Not that I agree with all of what he says through his Twitter sphere, but I thought Matt Walsh had a great take on that. Nothing says modern leftism like a bunch of rich elitists at a $30,000 per ticket gala walking around in hideous designer dresses with empty political slogans emblazoned across them, while an adoring press looks on and drools into their face muzzles. I mean, you have to laugh at that comment and take on what some witnessed last night as it started to make the rounds on social media. I mean, did not look exactly like a scene from the Hunger Games, like the capital city in the Hunger Games, and all of us, peasants and pawns are just watching and adoring, all of the celebrity status elites at $30,000 a ticket. I gotta say, given my experience in college, it's completely different than what a lot of kids are going through these days in the way, they're being told to conform or else. And a liberal art school, having taken a few courses in art and theology, religion, it gave you a very well-balanced look and background into, why people do what they do, how they think, and why they think that, their belief system. And one of the greatest experiences that I had ever in college, two that vividly stand out, was a Saturday morning film course that I took that required us to travel into New York City. Our campus was like 30 miles west of New York, and travel in New York City Saturday morning. You catch a flick, and then you talk with the director and some of the actors involved, and that was a very cool experience. And then also an art course that took us to the New York Metro Museum of Art. I mean, this was a lifetime experience that I got to enjoy as a college kid, on multiple occasions. Same with the Museum of Natural History across Central Park. Something I'll remember forever. And it really stinks that many young people today are unable to enjoy those experiences because of the mindset of those guiding our college campuses. It's a travesty and a sin. Tomorrow, Pat McCrory will be in studio with us. Join us, 7 until 10 a.m. Stay safe out there. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Keeping Leland informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT.